To the January meeting of Council, which I'll declare open. Wishing you all the best for the new year. First, I'll acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout the Barossa region and recognise their continual connection to land, waters and their culture, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Members, we are all present, so I'll move to item 1.5, which is the minutes from the previous meeting for confirmation. They're the minutes held on the 21st of December 2021, Wednesday the 22nd of December 2021, and a special meeting on the 18th of January 2022. Someone move those minutes be accepted. Councillor Hearn, and seconded Councillor De Vries. All those in favour?
I have to call John and Carla because they're not pinned to the moment.
John and Carla, can you just acknowledge by saying yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Those minutes have been passed. There is no petitions. We'll move to item 2.1, which is the Mayor's report on page 5. Any questions?
How did you go with the hospital meeting, Mayor?
The hospital meeting was really just to talk about possible land that may be suitable for a location. It was sort of held in confidence at the moment, and we haven't heard any feedback from that meeting at this particular time, other than that they're just looking at locations and to proceed with their investigations as to a likely location. Councillor Angus and then Councillor Johnston.
Thanks, Mayor. I wondered how you got on with Santos regarding the naming of a oil or gas well using the name Barossa. What was the outcome of that?
There's planned to be a subsequent meeting with them. What they were really looking for was a bit more background as to what our concerns were. It's interesting that this particular gas field has been named the Barossa field 15 years ago. So it's quite some time ago it was named by the previous owner of the field, and Santos has only come in the last couple of years and purchased the parcel of land. I highlighted to them the concerns that we have with brand Barossa and the community's importance and passion about protecting the brand name. And so we talked about what are the possible ways around overcoming some of the concerns. They seem somewhat reluctant to go through a fairly long-winded legal process to change the name when all the documents have been registered, etc., etc. So we just then sort of talked about what are some compromises, and then sort of we're going to reconvene again in a fortnight's time and just see where they're at. But I highlighted, you know, the amount of community concern there is associated with taking the Barossa name and applying it to offshore mining activities.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. One quick question, just an update, please, on the Adelaide Wine Capital Trail meeting that you held on the 22nd of December. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I should have put a little bit more information on that one, but it was really a meeting with it was a Teams meeting with those mayors that were available who are partners in this whole project, just to give them an update of where we're at, just see what has come back to them and fill them in on a possible lobbying strategy. And we've already had some discussions with the local candidate, and we're in the process of teeing up a meeting with Senator Birmingham as to try to proceed as to what advice he can give us to move forward with possible federal funding opportunities leading up to the election. So it was really a meeting with the adjoining mayors just to make sure that they were on board.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Johnston, I think I missed you before.
And when you're ready, Mayor, I've had my hand up for a while too.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Just following up from John's question, I'd like to ask a question that goes along the lines of, shouldn't we be seeking some legal advice about this, because the Barossa is a protected name in a range of locations, and I can't understand why they were allowed to name it that in the first place. I think they're at fault continuing to propagate that particular issue, but there's a whole lot of international law protecting this name. I just wonder whether we shouldn't be actually seeking a little bit of advice from Wine Australia, for example, about the status of the word Barossa. Thank you.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, is we're going to reconvene and have another meeting with them and get some feedback, and from there I think then we can work a strategy. I highlighted to them that none of this has come to council formally, so I was just, sort of highlighting the concerns that we have informally and drawing their attention to that. But I'll cross to the CEO.
Current legal position around the name Barossa is not as simple as name is protected. There are various protections potentially around the amount of Barossa that goes in a Barossa wine. But the word Barossa itself is actually not legally protected. That is one of the problems. Trademarks, brands, etc., is protected. So it's not as simple as the word Barossa is protected. It's a legal minefield. Hence why we continue to look at things like a GI for food Barossa and in terms of trying to protect some of those names. But as I'm sure you're all aware, the word Barossa is used more broadly than just the Barossa area. In many different ways. And we could be spending a hell of a lot of money to line up against a multi-billion-dollar organisation and we probably don't have the legal basis to do so.
I think the important thing that was highlighted to me is that even Santos doesn't even know the reason why it was named Barossa. But yeah, as Martin said, there's some things there that they highlighted to me in that meeting. We'll reconvene once we sort of get more info and see where they're at. There may be other opportunities where we can work something out with them. Councillor Wee-Smith.
Yeah, just continuing on the same topic there, a question and probably a bit of a comment too. So obviously we now have a new organisation that is meant to deal with issues like this, and we obviously touched on intellectual property at the think tank update the end of last year. So my question is, have Barossa Australia, representatives from Barossa Australia, been involved in these meetings? Because I would expect that they would be going forward, given this sort of falls into their realm more so than just council.
I think at this particular time, I highlighted to the fact that we haven't had a formal discussion or report in council until such time as we get some direction. They, at this particular point in time, really just want to have some discussions with council in the first instance, and I think then we can brief the other partners. Bear in mind that, as Martin said, we've got Barossa pizza that's made in Lobethal, and we've got stuff made all over the place. You can get a Barossa meat pie at Waikerie and all sorts of places. So how big do we go? But yeah, look, I think they're all valid things, but I gave an understanding to them that once they've gone away and digested what we spoke about, they'll convene another meeting and we'll go from there and bring something back to council for some direction.
I'd like to reiterate the Barossa Australia thing, because I think they're best placed at the end of the day. Obviously, we're not the whole Barossa, and a lot of the conversations around, bringing that organisation together is to deal with exactly these sort of issues. So Santos might want to talk to council, but I think we're responsible to make sure we're shepherding them in the right direction for these types of discussions too in the future.
No, that's fine. That's valid. No, all good. Any further questions? Not, I'll put the motions. Someone move the.
In a second.
Yeah, sorry, a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Angus. All those in favour? And I need.
No.
Councillor Boothby, can you acknowledge with a yes?
Yes.
And Councillor Miller, I think, yeah, Councillor Miller's there, okay. Councillor Troop,
Yes.
the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to the consensus report. Is there any items that members wish withdrawn? Councillor Wee-Smith and then Councillor Angus.
Sorry, my screens are playing up. 7.2.4.
Grade 4.2.4.
Which one was that again, Councillor Wee-Smith?
Anguston Football Club loan support.
That's a debate item.
That's a debate. Okay. Councillor Angus?
I skipped ahead.
Mayor, I just want to bring to your attention on page 42, the GRFMA minutes, you are reported as being present and an apology. How do you plead?
Yeah, my wife will say that probably is appropriate in both counts, but
I don't want to withdraw it, but it needs to be corrected.
no, thanks for that clarification. There's another correction later on where there's a mover and a seconder, and the motion it isn't acknowledged that it was carried as well. But at the next meeting, we will make those corrections. And you're right, I wasn't an apology. I wasn't present at the meeting. And thank you. I was going to clarify that point, but thanks for picking that one up. Any other? I just might acknowledge the national awards, and without withdrawing it, and just acknowledge the fact that we got a special commendation for the big project and its valued contribution to the region. So, which is well done. So, well done to you all, elected members and the staff involved. There's nothing for withdrawal. Will someone move that the consensus agenda be accepted? Move Councillor Johnston and seconded Councillor Schilling. All those in favour? And Councillor Troop and Councillor Boothby, I need you just to verbally acknowledge.
Yes. Yes.
The consensus agenda is adopted. We'll move to page 66, 7.2.1, which is the COVID-19 recovery plan and tariff impact response update. That's on page 66. Any questions? So recommendation there, councillors. Councillor Haybick and then Councillor Hearn. You'll move. You wish to speak to it, Councillor Haybick? Just need to turn your mic off.
Only that I think it was very important. There's an excellent job by the council during the last 18 months, 2 years, I thought. And credit goes to everyone involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hearn? Put the motion. All those in favour? Once again, Councillor Boothby and Councillor Troop.
Yes. Yes.
The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 106, which is 7.2.2, the monthly finance report as at the 31st of December 2021. 106.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Johnston. Any comment, Councillor De Vries?
No, I trust that the addition is correct.
Councillor Johnston?
No comment. It's going to plan.
No further comment. All those in favour?
Yes. Yes.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. We're just having a problem pinning you, Councillor Boothby and Troop to the screen. So we're still working on it, but bear with us.
Thank you. Next item is 7.2.3, consideration and adoption of the Audit Committee resolution on page 109. 109.
Sorry.
Yep. The recommendation there, councillors.
Well, if I don't have a conflict of interest, I'm happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Moved Councillor Angus and seconded Councillor Miller. Either one wish to speak?
No, thank you. I think it's well done.
No, thank you. Enough said.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Yes. Yes.
Motion's carried. Page 163, which is 7.2.4, is the Anguston Football Club Loan Support Amendment. Question? Councillor Lees, did you have a question on this one? Or? Yep. Councillor Lees?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having issues here. I was just hoping we could have this explained further to us. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'd like to see something on the record.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when we've lodged the loans, loan values have increased at an amount greater than the model was done. They were hoping that the loan would be around 2.3 when we estimated it was 2.5. But loans of that period have actually grown greater than anticipated. It's 3.25 from memory. So the consultation we had, the engagement we had with the club is that's going to put them fairly close on the model. The model was tight in any case. And the $20,000 would allow them to have repayments that are approximately what was originally anticipated in the financial model. The impact on the project is minimal, and certainly the club has, we originally budgeted around $35,000 worth of in-kind support, but they have at the moment just short of 52,000, but they will reach, we believe, past 55,000 by the time it's all added up. And that's the stuff, that's the value that actually qualifies under the grant. There is more than that, but that's what qualifies.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Louise Smith. And a seconder.
Second.
Councillor De Vries. Either one wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's all in the report. They don't want to get in too deep, and this seems to be the best compromise.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Next item is 7.2.5 on page 169, which is the new initiative, and the report is based around some direction on proceeding to full assessment. Any questions? I think David, Councillor Haybick, and then Councillor Johnston.
Thanks, Mayor. I was looking forward to a bit of further discussion on this matter because there's one area that I'm not quite happy with, and I need that discussed before any vote is put. So I don't know how we want to go about this, whether we have a discussion first or how we're going to sort this out.
Throw to the CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's just as simple as if you want them assessed, just list the additional ones you want assessed, put it in the resolution, and we will assess them if it passes. Simple as that.
Thank you.
So look, I'm happy to accept some discussion as to, and so Councillor Havik, you can carry on with your concerns.
Okay, it's in relation to item number 11, which is the green down at Lindock.
What page is that one, Councillor? What page?
It's page. It's
172.
number 11. It's listed as number 11 on the list.
172. Okay, thanks.
And there's been 2 meetings down there in relation to the village green. They want a plan drawn up to further enhance the area because it cops a lot of visitors coming through. And all they're asking for at this stage is some support to have a plan done up in the proper manner so that in time, in a staged effect, improvements can be done. So they're not looking for hundreds of thousands, it's $15,000, $20,000 to support a plan to be done up in a proper manner. So the people down there have some ideas as to what they want in the plan. I think it's just a matter of negotiating between the council and the group, the community group down there. So I'm looking forward to councillors to put that up and give that area some assistance down the Southern Alliance. Thanks.
Councillor Havik, are you aware that the Mayor and myself met with representatives just before Christmas?
I am.
Oh, sorry, the Mayor and myself, sorry, yeah, and the CEO and myself, and we explained to them that a lot of the things that they were talking about was really some operational things that we could do. And there seemed to be a general feeling that they were okay. The CEO might want to add some further, but there's still a wave that they want to plan, is there?
Exactly. They've always wanted a plan, and I know, and I think everyone else here knows that you can't do anything without a plan. So before they can go ahead and do anything or put in for grants or have things changed down there, we need a plan, and that's all they're asking for. But they are dead on the plan. So, and I wasn't at that meeting. So I've been at 2 other meetings where they had. One was a general community meeting, and they had about 30 odd residents at that one. And Councillor Johnson was there with myself, and then there's been another one on the 15th of July last year, and you, the Mayor, you were there, Mayor, and so forth. And so it's gone on from there. So I'd just like to move that on. And I must say that the Mayor pulled out a plan that was probably out of the archives of the village green that was been there for some years, and that plan is virtually on to some of the degree as to what the people down there want. So with that in mind, I'll leave it up to the council. Councillor.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, all we need to know is which ones that have been recommended not to be done that you want to be done, because all we're doing at the moment is assessing them against the policy that we brought back for funding. So I'll add in the resolution at the end, except that item 11 and any others will then be assessed. And just to let you know, we've resolved the sharing problem. So all councillors are now on screen. We don't need to ask you, Councillor Troop and Boothby, just show your hand.
Okay. Councillor Wee-Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to see item number 7 assessed, the Victoria Terrace pedestrian bridge. This has obviously been on the list for a long time. I realise that it's considered a new service, but with all the work that's been happening around the area down south here, you know, with the reservoirs and the increase in traffic, both pedestrian and cyclists, this bridge is an accident waiting to happen. I think we really need to investigate doing some work around there. There's not much space at all. And okay, there might not be any incidents there yet, but it's only a matter of time, particularly as, you know, the visitors to the region increase on top of the locals who walk around that area.
Councillor Schilling, and then I haven't forgotten you, Councillor Johnston. I can see you waiting patiently there, sir.
Thank you. Whilst I appreciate that we are trying to streamline this process, I would like to know what happens to the items on last year's list that didn't go through to assessment. If I knew that they weren't going to be on this year's list, I would have resubmitted them. So I'd just like to know where we stand with old, new initiatives, as in previous years, that didn't get assessed, and how they will be managed moving forward, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So thanks, Councillor Schilling. New initiatives are required to be put in every year. As per the policy, the last year, Councillor Angus asked for the prior 2 years to be reassessed, which we did, but we haven't been requested to do so, so we assess the ones that have been provided.
So it's too late now for any of those to be brought into this year's process.
It's up to the council. If they want to, at the end of the day, the budget's your baby. So if you want ones on that to be assessed and brought back, we will do so.
Why don't we, is it possible for us just to circulate those again, and then we'll... Yep.
Well, there's only a couple on there that I've identified that haven't been looked at. So the one is ATSI Parade, which I did put up this year, which I think is a priority, because those residents who have been talking to both Councillor Hearn and myself have been waiting for some activity on that site for about 5 years, and they are willing to participate in greening up that space. So I'd like to add that one. Kokoda Road is a flood mitigation issue. There's a resident there who's been waiting for a number of years for some action in front of his property where the drain is. He's waiting to finish off developing his own driveway and front yard because of this water issue. I'd also have a question to our CEO about the Newry Cemetery, which is in this year's new initiatives. It says, do from current budget if required, business as usual item. I'd like that explained, please. And the Herbic tree the bridge to the Herbic tree has been there for a couple of years. I support Councillor Herbic with the Village Green and the CAS grants being increased. I'd like to know what will happen with that item. And Kalimna Road, which has been discussed in the past, is a real safety issue for a growing part of Newry-Utpa, and it also has a disability business who sells gophers and that sort of thing that is getting a higher volume of traffic attending that business. So they're my main points that I'd like discussed, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've followed the policy. If the council wants to have additional ones on there, then we'll circulate it.
Yeah.
ATSI Parade was assessed last year, and documentation was provided as to that was never actually earmarked for development under the development approval processes. Kokoda Road, I would have to look back on. Kalimna Road was approved not to proceed by council because there is significant development to happen to the north of that, and we'll only have to go back and redevelop it in 5 to 8 years. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the other one, Councillor Schilling.
CAS grants, increase in the CAS grants.
So CAS grants, yes, CAS grants were parked for 2 years because they are increased to 150,000 over 2 years with the electricity refund in any case. So that's still another year to run. But rather than me go through everyone, actually, I shouldn't do it that way. If this is what council wants assessed, then we'll put it on the list, and you'll debate it accordingly.
And the question about the cemetery,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
If required, business as usual item. I didn't understand that.
What my notes are there, Councillor Schilling, is if that's required, we just need to go and do it. Because it's just a normal service provision. It's not a new service or an increase in service.
Thank you.
I just note with interest the health plan that'll come up later on does talk about adopting a park strategy. So there may be some opportunity through that mechanism with Atsu Parade. Councillor Johnston.
Oh, look, a couple of questions. One is there the Victoria Park initiative? Is there a possibility that some of the business as usual cleaning of or that pond is in a really poor state at the moment? It's gone quite anaerobic, and I think it's going to become a bit of a problem if something isn't done. So I'd just like to raise that as something that should be looked at, if that could actually be an operational issue or done better that way. And the second question I've got is the Yeti Road footpath. You know, the mayor and I have a problem. We don't like to advocate for the village and at a risk of being accused of being populist, but there's an entrance to the town that's gets significant walking traffic, and there is no footpath, and it's starting to become a real issue in the town. So I'd just like to ask whether or not we could kick off that process with some planning and some cost estimates of what it would do to complete that project to the boundary. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd probably support the notion of even if we just did the design.
So just through you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Mayor. A lot of these things are recommended on the fact that the council is also wanting to increase a rural road spend, and the capacity to actually deliver all this is just not there.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to make some decisions. So there's no way we can deliver. I mean, I don't know, at a guess there, I know Clinton was 1.6 million. But we can assess it and we can bring it back. But there's literally no way we can deliver another $5 million on rural roads plus more programs.
Look, and I acknowledge that. I'm probably just saying it would be good if we just done some of that forward planning on, and that was all. Yep. Councillor Hearn and then Councillor Boothby.
Thank you, Mayor. As you'd be well aware, I've been pushing for Fife Street now for two or 3 years. The residents certainly, and with additional blocks along that road, we need to consider that at some time. I noticed it's been pushed out to 23, 24, but this is what we did last year and the year before. But it was supposed to be done prior to the Rex, and the Rex came along and it was conveniently overlooked. So I'm just wondering whether we could perhaps put that back into the pie just to see the actual costings and bring it into this financial year or coming financial year. I
guess as the CEO's alluded to, is the ability to deliver them is probably the biggest challenge if we're looking at road. Yep.
Well, the one thing is we don't have to do all the curbing and everything else. We just should be looking at the roll up situation that we did before, just bitumenise the road and use the roll curves that has been done around the valley at certain places.
Yeah, the CEO just mentioned it'll be assessed. It'll come back. Councillor Boothby.
Just looking at this from a strategic point of view, understanding that we have budget considerations to make, I'd like to include number 19 on page 173, which is the growth and infrastructure investment strategy. Understanding that we do currently have, I have a brand new draft local economic development plan with the imminent, as in the next 18 months to 2 years, Greater Adelaide Plan being reviewed, the potential for sub-regional planning, the existing issues that the economic development strategy has already raised in terms of infrastructure, but in particular housing. I think it's really important that we can continue to mature our conversation in this space. It's great that we've got the economic development plan, but we can't stop there. We need to keep having these conversations about where we're going to grow, how we're going to grow, and what that's going to look like. So a lot of the conversation that we have, and I think today this conversation demonstrates it really well, is looking at stuff that is massively important, but it's none of it is strategic. This is one thing on the agenda that is strategic, and I'd love to see that included. The other one I just have a question on is number 14, which is looking for, on page 172, which is looking for additional administrative support. We've recommended on number 1 that the big project get admin support, with it being funded through capital funding. I would not like to see us ignore or not look at a need for operational admin support just because it's got to come out of the operational budget. So I was keen to know why one was looking for moving forward and not the other one, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Boothby. The main reason for parking the number 14 is that we believe with the implementation of business case 1 and 2 that we will have some opportunities to reshift workloads. The thinking also internally is that we may make a small provision in our budgets to assist with that if necessary. So we will be doing some more internal work, but it probably doesn't need to proceed to a full assessment.
Any further questions?
You've got Kathy and Don.
Councillor Troop and then Councillor Angus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I'd like to include number 22, but probably not in the way that it's been written. It's actually the burial site for the at Roland Flat. It has been suggested in the past about the streetscape for the burial site. I don't think that's appropriate. I agree, definitely agree with it. But there is some issues around the integrity of the grave site. It is constantly being eroded. And I'm just wondering if we could actually just get an assessment about a retaining wall around it, because I think it would go a very long way in our reconciliation, just advancing that reconciliation a little bit more, that we've actually protected the grave. It's just a really good message for the Ngadjuri Nation. So maybe we could just get an assessment perhaps on a retaining wall so that that grave doesn't actually, I mean, there's a great big Stobie pole sticking in there as well. So I often look at it and I think there's only a few metres from the road. So, and it is quite high. So I just wonder if we could just assess that if possible. And also the possibility might be to get a grant in this space, because there's plenty of money out there to do this sort of thing, to protect graves and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering whether it might not be actually an impact on our budget, but it could be channeled through a grant. Anyway, that's just if I can, thanks.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Thanks, Jim.
Councillor Angus.
No, Mayor, I didn't actually indicate I needed to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Barrett.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a few dot points. The first one is item 11, the village green at Lindock. I have also been to several meetings at Lindock through the Southern Barossa Alliance, and it's quite topical, and I fully support what Councillor Habig is saying in relation to that. The other one I had as a note was the Newry Pool, item 12A. When I look at modern change rooms without doors, I just find incomprehensible at this day and age. So I'm just wondering if number 12A can be looked at and give people some privacy in that regard. And the last one I had written down relates to item number 5, and I note when I read item number 5, it talks about priorities for footpaths in Mount Pleasant and Newry. If we start looking at Yeti Road doing footpaths, how does that, because I thought it was Mount Pleasant and Angaston to finish off the footpaths in Angaston and not Newry. I'm just wondering how the priority list then works out, where they then fit into the various priorities. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the absolute intention for the doors is to do it out of maintenance. That's in the notes. The Yeti Road, that's a good pickup. I'll just ask Mr. Elding to double confirm that, but I think it probably should be Anguston. That might just be my typo when I've converted it. But Matt, if you can talk to that. And yeah, number 11, you're in there to be assessed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. There's a number of priorities to be completed in Mount Pleasant, which is in this current budget, plus Anguston, which is also in the budget. There is a footpath that's still to be constructed in Newry that's in this current budget. But Anguston, you're right, is the priority in terms of the main streetscaping and continuing those block paving in collaboration with the local businesses and ACBAR.
Thank you.
I just might add that Yeti Road, I'm still sort of saying just design only. Bear in mind that it is a very, very highly populated town these days, Williamstown. Just throw that in the mix. But also just would like to highlight that one of the things we did point out to the Lindock representatives was our focus now with the money that's being gained for Tanunda is the Lindock Oval. And I guess we've got to not overlook the fact is our commitment to the Lindock Oval and the Southern Sporting Hub, which is going to be a significant amount of money in that community too. So any further questions?
Can I just confirm that Martin did say that it was coming back for reconsideration for Fife? I was still talking, I think, at that time.
It's exactly what I was going to do, Councillor. So my interpretation of the resolution, therefore, is as it is written, but then it'll be made at attachment 1, except that items 11, 7, feels like bingo. 4, that was 4, 19 and 22. And that prior matters of Kokoda, ATSI, community assistance and Kalimna also be assessed.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Got that. Councillor Johnston, you okay?
Kick off a plan for Yeti Road. That's not on the list. I'm not saying do the works, we're saying just get the ball rolling.
Add 5, please, Janine.
Councillor De Vries.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries, and who seconded that?
Anthony.
Councillor Hearn. You wish to speak to it, Councillor De Vries?
I think everybody's spoken to it, Your Worship.
Oh, dear.
Okay. All right. All those in favour? Yep, now I've got you all. Thank you. Carried. Oh, yes. Members, I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn our ordinary meeting of council and go into our special meeting as being listed. Moved Councillor Hearn, seconded Councillor Wee-Smith. All those in favour, we adjourn the meeting. Carried. I'll go into the special meeting and welcome everybody present and move straight on to the debate agenda, which is on page 3 of the special meeting agenda, which was emailed out to us all, and that is to do with the Rex Leisure Pool repairs and upgrades.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Wee-Smith. Any questions?
Straightforward.
Councillor De Vries, you wish to speak to the motion?
Unless anybody's going to speak against it, I think we've discussed this during the previous special meeting, and I think this is the opportunity for us to get the best possible outcome in the quickest possible time. So for me, this is a very straightforward process. But if anybody wants to speak against it, I'm happy to go into more detail.
Councillor Lee Smith, any comment?
Councillor Johnston's waving his hand.
Yeah, I know. Oh. Councillor Johnston.
Just a quick question. Does that, I'll throw you, Mayor, to the CEO, is that
That's pretty
motion still,
straightforward. No, thanks.
sorry, is that motion still too specific? Is there more water to go under the bridge with the tile selection, and should it be more broad?
Through you, Mayor, there's only 2 types.
Thank you. Any further comment? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. I'll, with that special council meeting, I'll declare that meeting closed and revert back to our agenda, which will be the corporate services and business innovation, which is the update of delegation register bylaws on page 175. Page 175.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Move Councillor De Vries.
Second.
Seconded Councillor Hearn. Either one wish to speak?
No.
No, I want the CEO to do them. I don't want to do them.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just note
Yes. Yeah, Councillor Wee Smith.
It's frozen.
didn't vote for.
Oh, you didn't vote?
Dropping in and out.
Yeah, you're dropping in and out. Okay. Well, I'll put the motion again, and then I'll seek those who are against. All those in favour? Those against? We're not seeing you voting, Councillor Wee Smith.
I'll have to log back in.
It's got a little technical hitch here for the.
Keep going, because you've got a call.
We're okay?
I'm getting Sam to call her.
Okay. So I'll move on. Okay. We'll move on to the.
She's just voted there, Bim.
Beg your pardon?
She just voted.
Oh, now I got you. Okay, thank you. Carried. 7.6.1, the proposed road closure for the 2022 SA Variety Bass finish line, proposed for Tanunda Main Street on page 91, 191. Any questions? Councillor Barrett, or are you moving? Move, Councillor Barrett. Yep.
Oh, just parts 1 and 2 and not part 3.
I'll second that.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor De Vries seconded. Part 1 and 2, not 3. Thank you. Either one wish to speak to it?
No, it's all self-evident.
Yeah, I'm happy to support it, and I'm happy for us to provide the in-kind support, and the money will ultimately go to our staff, which I think is a good thing anyway. So, great.
Any further comment? All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. I reckon there's a time delay for Carla. Next item is 7.7.1, the Regional Public Health Plan, draft consultation, 195. Any questions?
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Councillor Troop moved, seconded Councillor Schilling. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Troop?
Only just to say that it was a mammoth amount of work, I think, and I guess just observing that the needs of our society are changing, just not only from the physical but into the mental area, and that was one of the highest, the highest needs perceived in all of the community and within the businesses. And there were some interesting statistics around youth. And so I just think it's, a very good springboard that we can use for council. And I think that we're moving in the right direction with all of our efforts in the even looking at our libraries becoming more of a community hub, looking at suicide prevention networks, looking at ways that we can support our families, even our community connector is all ticking all those boxes. So I think it's a great bit of work that we can build on from there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Schilling?
Yes, I think it's a great plan, and I certainly hope that the other four councils that are involved support the regional role to help activate the plan. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Barrett.
Yes, the only comment I'd like to make, it comes from page 331 of that particular of the report, and under the community transport, I noticed that specifically talk about cycling and walking. Now, if that's not the impetus for us to start work on footpaths, I don't know what is. So I compliment the authors of the report. So very well done.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett, and highlighting the importance of cycling is always well received.
Come on.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Telstra's working, Councillor Wees. Next item is 7.7.2, page 348, which is the Legatus Group Waste Resource Recovery Strategy and Action Plan on 348.
I ask a question, just a quick observation. I should have written to someone about this, but I notice through the Legatus report, there's a variation in the order in which the initiatives are reported between, and so there's a sort of initial, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and the contents of priority 2 and priority 3 get swapped. So someone might just like to point that out to them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor de Vries?
I was just going to move the recommendation if no one had any questions.
Okay. I'll take that as...
I'll second that.
Seconded Councillor Johnston. Wish to speak to it, Councillor de Vries?
Well, it's good to see that they're aligning with what we've been doing.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston?
I need to comment that given that we've got 2,500 tonnes of organic waste coming out of the Barossa Council alone, that there'd be a regional organic waste depot in the region that growers can access to reduce transport costs is to be commended.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.7.3 is the draft GRSE FMA strategic plan and contribution funding model on page 378. 378. Any questions? Councillor De Vries, do you have your hand up?
Sorry, Your Worship, I thought I was there. His Worship and I were discussing this last night. And I thought it might have been related more to the next agenda item. But with the funding, what's really important is we've seen this before, where not all councils, excuse me, excuse me, bit of COVID. Not all councils have actually been necessarily enthusiastically supporting some of the initiatives, and so I'm just kind of curious to know how the other councils within this group stack up. Are everybody equally committed to this, or are there some that might be wavering at the moment? Maybe the CEO could give us some feedback on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks, Councillor De Vries. I guess the two reports sort of work hand in hand a little bit, so that question can go to both. Yeah, look, Mr. Mavrinac will have a better feel for the majority of the councils. I've received correspondence from the CEO of Playford wanting to have a conversation around the funding models and the proposal that they're not prepared to put it to their council as yet, because in their view, we should be having a conversation around all three tiers of government should be investing based on their level of taxation, not on. You know, the very short answer to Playford is they're not prepared to proceed yet. They want to have a meeting, but in terms of other councils, I haven't had any other conversations. So I'll defer to Mr. Mavrinac on that, on the others.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, at this stage, obviously all constituent council members have supported the funding model review. Obviously, since the review was initiated a few years ago, the councils have all supported the need to look at the contribution model. The current model has been in place, obviously, since the establishment of the authority. Obviously, there's a question about the equity in that current model. So at this stage, it's fair to say that most councils are supportive of the need to refresh the thinking behind the model. Adelaide Plains Council probably are the ones that are most interested in how the model will be applied, given that they are at the moment one of the major contributors when it comes to some of the capital work within the catchment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Councillor De Vries, you're correct. It was more aligned to that next item. I'm sorry I jumped in on that one with your question.
That's all right. Well, I'll bring that up again when we come to the next agenda item. As the wording of this particular recommendation stands, given that it is still subject to the weightings being agreed to, and obviously this has to be equitable. I don't mind being part of the authority, providing, and I'm going to quote, paraphrase Brian Hearn here, that so long as the money is flowing both up and down river, and so those that are contributing are all getting an equal share in the benefits, I think that's fine. What I'm not happy about and haven't been happy about for some time is effectively Barossa subsidising development downstream, where development is put into inappropriate areas subject to flooding, and then we end up contributing towards the mitigation of that flooding, and yet the councils who have allowed that to occur reap the benefit from that additional development, and then basically we are then required to help pick up the pieces of what is poor planning. Now, hopefully that isn't something that is as prevalent today as it has been in the past, but there's no question that definitely went on previously, and we have to look to the future, and we don't know which councils and what plans are going to be applied further on. So long as that is equitable, I don't have an issue with the recommendation and would be happy to move it.
Thank you. Moved to Councillor De Vries. Seconded Councillor Johnston. Councillor Johnston, you want to speak to it?
Oh, I think just recognising whilst we remain a part of this organisation, the size of our catchment means that we have to cop it sweet for the moment. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor De Vries that it does draw us into the possibility that we compensate people downstream for the floodwaters that we potentially generate. And I'm not clear that clearly a lot of scientific thinking's gone into the nature of the model, and in the end we wear it because we've got this enormous contribution made to the catchment. Thanks, Your Worship.
Any other comments? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Yes, the next item on page 422 does go into the detail of what the extent of project 3 and 4 is about.
Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor De Vries.
As councillors know, I'm not a big fan of laying items on the table. So let me put it this way: I'm going to foreshadow that I will be laying this on the table. But if people want to discuss it first, I'm happy to hold off on that until those views have been expressed, if that is what other members of the council would like to do. Otherwise, the reason why I would be doing this is because I'd like to hear back from Playford before we commit.
Thank you. Councillor Hayvick. Just, you're on mute, Councillor.
Last Saturday, I drove through Angle Vale, and all they had down there at that time was the water out of the sky. It didn't come from up here. The place was flooded. So we need to be careful we don't get caught up with the paranoia of the floods down there, and the issue comes back to us, because I don't think it happens all that way. So I'd like to see more work done up before we contribute to someone else's problem first. As obviously there were council vehicles out, and the roads were flooded completely across. Water could not get away. They've got a huge drainage problem, which they've always had in that area. So I'd like to see it on the table for a while.
Any other? Councillor De Vries.
Oh, no, sorry. Councillor Johnson's got his hand up. I'll wait.
Look, I'm just seeking clarification through you, Mayor, to the CEO. This particular thing is about a contribution that we would make potentially against a $9 million grant from the state government. And I'm just asking the question, is it the case in the minutes? I wasn't at the meeting of the GRFMA, but there's a bit of caution expressed in that GRFMA minutes about the contribution that councils would be asked to co-contribute to this $9 million. So it's not I don't think we're being asked for a huge amount of money. I just want to get that clarified.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Johnson. I'll ask Mr. Mavronak to confirm that at this point in time, there is work to be done to exactly know what the contribution would be. But Mr. Mavronak can confirm he was at the meeting.
Yep, through the Mayor, at this stage, both the GRFMA and constituent councils are being asked to contribute either in kind or a cash contribution. The quantum obviously is up to each individual council to see what it's prepared to contribute, but obviously it is there to basically boost up the $9 million funding that the state government has made. Equally, obviously, in terms of the opportunity for grant funding to also upsize some of these projects.
Yeah, I guess my concern is the project, which is all associated with clearing the river and levee banks and everything downstream. Are we in a position that we could accept that part 2 and it's just be in kind at this point in time and drop the cash contribution?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that the structure of the report is such that we are doing it in kind, but it says we'll have to bring something back in any case.
Yeah.
So we're not making any commitment. To an effect, we're probably already lying it on the table because we don't have enough information. We've got to bring it back.
Well, is that what we should be doing?
Well, yes. That's the recommendation of staff, but I can't tell you what to do. You're the council.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I'm prepared to move the motion.
Councillor Johnston, you're moving the motion as it reads?
Yes, I think it does what David intends, I hope. Thank you.
Councillor De Vries, you seconding or?
No, I won't second. Oh, I won't second because I may still lay it on the table, but I'll let someone else second it. But I do have another question.
Just hang on then. I think Councillor Wee-Smith, you had your hand up first, and then.
Yeah, I'll second the motion there.
Okay, I've got a mover and a seconder. So I'll ask the mover and then the seconder to speak.
Oh, thanks, Your Worship. I've probably said enough already. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wee-Smith.
You got it, okay.
I think Councillor Johnston's covered off on that. I do think, as he said, this achieves exactly what Councillor De Vries is aiming to. We're not actually committing to anything yet, and I think we need to get on with it. So we've got the information so we can make a decision when this comes back to us.
Councillor Boothby, you had your hand up, then Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting the motion. I think with 2 government elections imminent, I would imagine there's actually a time imperative with this as well. These conversations have been going on for a very, very long time, and the opportunity to actually, get some significant funding towards these works, I don't think we want to muck around with that. So the more certain I think that these process, or the more stages we can go through on these processes before the next 2, state and federal elections, I think would be good, whilst there's actually money on the table.
Thank you. Councillor De Vries.
Okay, I'm not necessarily going to have this lie on the table, subject to, I'd like to find out a couple of things from the CEO if I could. Like yourself, Your Worship, I'm concerned about the fact that we're still waiting for a commitment from Playford, and I'm concerned about the fact that we could potentially see money flowing downriver and not upriver. And while this is important, frankly, flooding in Playford isn't really our problem. It is something that has been put on us, but I don't see why our ratepayers should be contributing disproportionately towards an issue which we're not actually creating. So with that in mind, to the CEO, I guess what I want to know is where is Playford? Where are they likely to go? And if we approve this recommendation, will we be locked in, or will we be in a position where we can modify our commitment if we decide that we're not happy with the level of commitment that Playford's putting in?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor De Vries. The only thing that we've committed to at the moment is some in-kind under Resolution 1. Resolution 2 gives us plenty of opportunity to bring something back, to have a conversation around exactly what you're talking about. And I can assure you, based on that, Councillor De Vries, I will wait to see what Playford's modus operandi is at the end of the day. And I can't remember the date, but I am meeting with all the CEOs sometime in fortnight.
So sorry, Your Worship, if I may follow up. So you're comfortable with the language of this motion that we will not be overcommitting ourselves, as has been indicated by the mover and seconder.
Yes, rereading it as we're talking, the instruction is to bring a full report back to you before we do anything.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. In that case, I won't be asking it to lay on the table.
Mr. Mavronak, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce, obviously, the connection between this report and the previous report is quite evident, because obviously in terms of with that funding model being eventually adopted by the GRFMA, that will be used to how the contribution will be worked for potentially for projects 3 and 4 in the delivery of the $9 million.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Johnston, you wish to close the debate?
Oh, look, I'd just like to thank everyone for a sensible debate about this, and I think the critical thing is that the GRFMA can get on and apply for this grant funding, as Councillor Boothby points out. Thank you.
Put the motion. All those in favour? This motion is carried. Page 427, which is the hard waste, 7.7.5, which is the hard waste report.
Can I just ask a question of the CEO, Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor De Vries.
I'm assuming, Your Worship, this is under, I can't remember the term for it, but my wife has actually applied for one of these. Do I have a conflict? Significant class, I think it's called.
Yeah, I mean, it's available to every resident. So, yeah, I would argue that that's a significant class. So that would exempt you all. Yes.
I will stay online.
Okay. Any further questions? It's a recommendation there.
I'll move. Sorry.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, it's every eligible resident. I should just be careful of my language, but it's still a significant class.
Yep.
I've moved Councillor De Vries, and I think Councillor Johnston, you second. You wish to speak to it, Councillor De Vries?
No, we've got an old chair in our garage we've been looking to get rid of for ages, so this is great.
Councillor Johnston?
I've still got a problem with the fridge.
Okay. Any further comment? Councillor Haber, you seconding?
I was going to second it, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Louise-Smith.
Just to comment to say, it's fantastic to see such a response to this. I mean, I'm not really surprised. We've been talking about this for years. What's the number one issue when you talk to residents? They want hard waste collection. So I think this only demonstrates that we are doing the right thing, and hopefully we can continue to offer the same initiative going forward.
Councillor Havik.
I'd just like to thank Gary and his team for it's taken some months to get this up and going, but I know there's been a lot of angst behind it because I've had conversations with them, and I'd just like to thank them on behalf of the councillors for the work they've done. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Put the motion, Councillor Johnston.
Oh, just a quick throwaway comment. I'll also draw people's attention to the fact that the garage sales were incredibly successful, and that's the other opportunity people have got to get rid of hard waste.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Members, that's the end of our agenda. The next meeting, the next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, the 15th of February, 2022 at 9 a.m. and we'll let you know the forum and the location in due course.